Hi everybody, welcome back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. Funnily enough, this isn't about Newcastle United, this one. No, this is about Nottingham Forest. No, we haven't turned into a Nottingham Forest podcast. I just wanted to jump on and do my quick thought and rant about this as well, because you all know the news, you all know what's happened. Nottingham Forest are the latest ones to be screwed over by the Premier League and their bullshit commissions rulings in terms of FFP, and they've been officially docked 4 points. The Premier League, I think, wanted 10 points when they first came, and then Forest argued that down and basically said that, you've done us 9 points for going into administration. How can you want 10 points for this? And they've eventually settled on 4. But Nottingham Forest have released a statement, which Mark will put in the link below, so make sure you check that out. And I must admit that credit to Nottingham Forest here. They have gone for the Premier League in this statement, and I think it's fantastic. I really, really do. The some of the stuff that they're saying here, just kind of looking down there as well. They're saying that, they're extremely dismayed by the tone and the content of the Premier League submission before the Commission. After months of engagement with the Premier League and exceptional cooperation throughout, very similar to the Everton situation, this was unexpected and has harmed the trust and confidence that they have in the Premier League. So massive respect for us for calling these fuckers out for the way they've behaved. And they said the Premier League sought to sanction 8 points, I believe it was, at the start, which was utterly disproportionate with what they were looking at. And the interesting bit here, just looking through it, so they're saying even after the Premier League, the club had missed the PSR reporting deadline, which is similar to Everton. It took steps to balance the books by selling Brennan Johnson, one of their best players, and he was sold before the end of the transfer window. And that was a clear demonstration for Forest's respect and support for PSR. And the Premier League have completely ignored that altogether and have just set about them, which is just absolutely mental. But I think that the interesting comment here from Nottingham Forest, and this is the one that everybody's grabbing a hold on, this is the one that really wanted me to come on and do the video in here as well with it, which they're just saying here, there'll be occasions when a player transfer can't be completed in the first half of the transfer window. It can only be completed by the end of the window. This should not be a reason for the condemnation of a club. For this not to be recognised by the Commission of the Premier League should be a matter of extreme concern to all of the fans of the national game. And then they also said of wider concern for all aspirant clubs, the disturbing effect this decision will have on the operation of player trading model. This is the only model by which clubs outside of the small group at the very top end of the Premier League can realistically advance up the football pyramid. The rationale of the Commission is that clubs should only invest after they've received a profit from player development. This reasoning destroys mobility in the football pyramid, and the effect of the decision will be to drastically reduce the room for manoeuvre for all such clubs, leading to the stagnation of our national game. Bravo, Nottingham Forest. Whoever's wrote that statement, I'm sure they've had a solicitor to write that statement as well. Absolutely fantastic. What a magnanimous, articulate way to call these bastards out for the complete elitism that they're showing in the Premier League right now. This whole thing stinks of shit. It really, really does. I'll get into the consistency of the punishment in a minute between Everton and Forest, because that doesn't make sense either. But when you're talking about this whole setup, you're talking about teams who aren't able to compete. You're talking about teams who have to sell their best players to reinvest in players. So someone like Morgan Gibbs-White has a really good season that they bought for 40 million quid. The Manchester City want to buy him for 70. They've got to sell him and bank that money and then try and go buy another couple of players, but they're not going to be as good as Morgan Gibbs-White. They're telling these clubs, the Premier League are telling these clubs, the clubs like Newcastle, will go and invest in youth academies and bring kids through. But then what happens is your kid comes through and he has a couple of really good games, and then Manchester City want him for 40 million quid. And these clubs are thinking, oh, well, we need to sell him because it's pure profit. It's pure profit. And it's just mental. They're completely not screwed this game up just to protect that cartel that's sitting at the top of the Premier League. And from a Newcastle point of view, which is what we do as a channel, Newcastle United are now owned by the richest people on the planet, and they can't even grow, they can't even build. Manchester City and Chelsea, their takeover and their rebuild came along at a time when none of this shit existed whatsoever. So they were able to become these massive super clubs from the clubs that they were previously, with no kind of ceiling, really, no boundaries, no handcuffs on. Newcastle can't do that. Aston Villa can't do that. They've got wealthy owners as well right now. So the whole thing is a complete and utter crock of shit. And then when you're looking at the two differences in punishments between the clubs, so you've got Everton had a £19.5 million breach, and that 10 points is what the Premier League wanted to reduce to 6 on appeal. And then Forest had a £34.5 million breach. That was 4 points. So where's the consistency with that at all? You know, they're saying that Forest had an unfair advantage because they bought loads of players, but they had to buy players to stay in the Premier League. And they did stay in the Premier League. Had they left the Premier League, it would have cost them a fortune. You know, and it just, this whole thing just doesn't make sense at all. And I'm so happy and proud of Nottingham Forest as a football club, and I'm sure all their supporters are as well, for calling these lot out for exactly what they are. This whole football pyramid right now, and the greedy six are sitting right at the top of it. It's taken the living piss of all the clubs underneath. So the rest of the 14 teams in the Premier League, and then beneath them as well, they're all getting screwed over, and they can't reach for that brass ring because of this closed shop situation that the Premier League has created, and it stinks. You know, they're putting the blocks on for sponsorship deals in amongst the clubs. Newcastle, we're feeling that as well. You know, they're putting the spending blocks in. It's just mental, absolutely mental. And something is going to give very, very soon. They have all these little meetings where the Premier League teams vote for things. You know, these teams at the Premier League have rallied around to protect the most commercially viable revenue teams: Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, you know, Man City, Chelsea, Spurs, these kind of teams. These teams that they've all rallied around to protect were the very teams that wanted to piss off and go start that Super League up and double, quadruple, or treble their money, whatever it may be. And the Premier League could have lost all them teams, and then the Premier League wouldn't have had a Premier League without those teams. So Newcastle would have been the big superpower, or Villa, or maybe even Everton as well. They would have become the big superpower in the Premier League, and then the Premier League would have been all over them like a rash. So this whole thing just stinks to high heavens. It's corruption. It really is. If it was happening in the business world, it'd be in a court of law, and people would be arguing about it, throwing out evidence left, right, and centre. So I think this is brilliant from Nottingham Forest to call these bastards out for this, and I really hope the rest of the teams in the Premier League follow suit, and they do exactly the same thing. All release statements, standing with Nottingham Forest, standing with Everton as well for the way that they've been shafted. You know, because for me, this thing is totally wrong. It needs to be sorted out. It needs to be sorted out right now. And thanks to the likes of Forest for calling these fuckers out. Maybe we'll get there. But that's my take on this, guys. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Nottingham Forest fans, you're more than welcome to come and comment on this video as well. I'm sure you guys are doing loads of content on it, but we wanted to come on and say our piece about it as well. I think this is brilliant. Newcastle stands with you guys as well. You guys are putting these buggers on the spot, and they absolutely deserve it as well. Because I want to hear an explanation from Masters and all these other shit houses in there as well as to why they think this is a viable reason and excuse to stop the growth in the Premier League with the rest of the clubs, and just let the big clubs hoover up all the best players and then take all the best youth out of our academies as well. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Subscribe if you like this kind of a thing. We're really close to 7,000 subs. Loads of room for you. Like the video, help the channel grow. Have a cracking day wherever you are. I'm sure there'll be loads more stories coming off the back of these punishments for Forest, and the football community will be talking, I'm sure, about it, and everybody will be listening. Have a great day wherever you are. Cheers. Bye.